Imagine standing in the lavish courtyard of an ancient palace. The air buzzes with excitement as nobles and dignitaries gather, dressed in their finest garments. Golden decorations glisten in the sunlight as musicians tune their instruments. The royal palace of Jerusalem is preparing for one of the most anticipated events of the century, a royal wedding. Have you ever wondered what a royal wedding was like in biblical times? How did the ancient Hebrews celebrate when their king took a bride? The answer can be found in one of the most unique passages in the Bible, Psalm 45, often called the Royal Wedding Psalm. Written around 950 BCE during the height of Israel's united monarchy, this remarkable poem stands apart from most psalms. While many biblical psalms focus on lamentation, thanksgiving, or praise directly to God, Psalm 45 is actually a wedding song, a royal epithalamium composed for a king's marriage. Some scholars believe it was written specifically for Solomon's wedding to Pharaoh's daughter, an alliance marriage recorded in 1 Kings 3 verse 1 that took place around 970 BCE. Others suggest it may commemorate the marriage of King Ahab to the foreign princess Jezebel in 874 BCE, or perhaps even King Jehoram's union with Athaliah around 849 BCE. What makes this psalm truly fascinating is how it seamlessly blends royal celebration with profound theological meaning. Today, we'll journey through this ancient poem, verse by verse, uncovering both its historical context and its enduring spiritual significance that has captivated readers for nearly 3 millennia. As the psalm's superscription tells us, it was set to the tune of lilies and entrusted to the choirmaster. The sons of Korah, a Levitical family designated as temple musicians after their ancestors' rebellion detailed in Numbers 16, crafted this masterpiece as a love song, or maskil, a term indicating a contemplative poem designed for instruction. Let's begin with the first verse, where the psalmist reveals his inspiration. My heart overflows with a pleasing theme, I address my verses to the king, my tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. The composer isn't simply following royal protocol here. He's genuinely moved, his heart overflows like a fountain unable to contain itself. The Hebrew word rakush conveys bubbling or gushing forth, suggesting powerful emotion. This isn't mere flattery or obligatory praise, but authentic artistic inspiration. The royal wedding has stirred something profound within him. Notice how he compares his tongue to the pen of a ready scribe. In ancient times, scribes were highly educated professionals, often training from childhood in the complex art of writing. They needed steady hands, sharp minds, and meticulous attention to detail. By using this metaphor, the psalmist indicates he's not speaking impulsively but with careful, deliberate precision. His words flow easily because he's deeply moved by his subject. In verses 2 to 5, the psalmist turns his attention directly to the king. You are the most handsome of the sons of men, grace is poured upon your lips, therefore God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, the peoples fall under you. This passage paints a vivid portrait of the ideal Hebrew monarch. First, the king's physical appearance is praised, he is the most handsome of the sons of men. While this might seem superficial to modern readers, in ancient Near Eastern cultures, physical beauty was often considered a reflection of divine favor. The king's appearance symbolized the prosperity and blessing of the entire kingdom. But the praise quickly moves beyond mere appearance. The king's speech is characterized by grace, suggesting eloquence, wisdom, and perhaps kindness, essential qualities for effective leadership. This gracious speech is directly linked to divine blessing, establishing the theological foundation of ancient Israelite monarchy. The king rules as God's representative. The imagery then shifts dramatically to the king as warrior. The sword, girded on his thigh, represents royal authority and military might. The Hebrew word for mighty one, gibber, is the same term used for legendary warriors and heroes. This martial imagery wasn't mere posturing. Israel's kings were literally warrior kings who led troops into battle. David established his reputation by defeating Goliath and leading successful military campaigns. Solomon, though known more for his wisdom, maintained a formidable army with 12,000 horsemen and 1,400 chariots, 1 Kings 10 verse 26. Yet notice the causes for which the king rides out: truth, meekness, and righteousness. This remarkable combination reveals the unique character of biblical kingship. Unlike surrounding nations where kings often glorified conquest for its own sake, Israel's ideal monarch used his power to establish justice. The Hebrew word for meekness, anava, doesn't suggest weakness but rather power under control, strength exercised with restraint and compassion. The imagery of arrows striking enemies' hearts in verse 5 continues the martial theme, but with an important distinction. The king's victories aren't primarily about territorial expansion or plunder, but establishing God's order. When ancient Near Eastern kings went to war, they typically claimed divine backing. What makes the biblical perspective distinct is that the king's success is contingent on his faithfulness to divine principles, not merely claiming God's name while pursuing selfish ambitions. Verse 6 contains one of the Psalm's most theologically significant statements. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. This verse has generated considerable scholarly debate. Is the psalmist directly addressing the king as God, Elohim? Some translators render it, your divine throne, or your throne established by God, to avoid this implication. However, in ancient Near Eastern thought, kings were often considered divine representatives or even semi-divine beings. Israel's theology moderated this view. Their kings weren't gods but were divinely appointed. What's particularly remarkable is how the New Testament appropriates this passage. Hebrews 1 verses 8-9 quotes these verses as referring to Christ, using them to establish Jesus' divine nature. This Christological reading transformed the psalm from a royal wedding song into a prophetic text pointing toward the Messiah. The scepter of uprightness continues the theme of just rule. The scepter, a decorated rod or staff, symbolized royal authority throughout the ancient Near East. Egyptian pharaohs carried the crook and flail, Babylonian kings wielded the ceremonial mace. Here, Israel's king holds a scepter characterized by uprightness, mishar, a term suggesting fairness, equity, and moral straightness. Verse 7 continues this ethical emphasis. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. This verse establishes a crucial principle: the king's authority stems from his moral character. His anointing, the ceremonial pouring of oil that officially installed him as king, is directly linked to his love of righteousness and hatred of wickedness. This wasn't merely personal virtue but had profound implications for governance. Kings in Israel were expected to champion justice, protect the vulnerable, and uphold God's law. The oil of gladness suggests celebration and divine approval. In ancient Israel, olive oil was used not only for practical purposes but also in religious ceremonies. Kings weren't anointed with ordinary oil but with a special fragrant blend called the holy anointing oil, Exodus 30 verses 22-33, containing myrrh, cinnamon, calamus, and cassia. This connects with the next verse. All your robes are fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces stringed instruments make you glad. The king's garments are infused with luxury spices and fragrances that would have been extraordinarily expensive in the ancient world. Myrrh was a resin from Arabian and East African trees, used in perfumes, medicines, and embalming. Aloes, likely a fragrant wood, not the plant we know today, came from Southeast Asia. Cassia, similar to cinnamon, was imported from what is now southern China. These exotic ingredients highlight Israel's international trade networks, particularly developed during Solomon's reign when merchants traveled as far as India and possibly beyond. The ivory palaces reflect the opulence of ancient Near Eastern royal courts. Archaeological excavations at Samaria, capital of the northern kingdom, uncovered over 500 ivory fragments from palace decorations, confirming the biblical accounts of King Ahab's ivory house, 1 Kings 22 verse 39. These weren't solid ivory structures but palaces adorned with ivory inlays, furniture, and decorations, symbols of extraordinary wealth acquired through international commerce. The reference to stringed instruments creates a multisensory experience. Fragrant scents fill the air while music plays. Ancient Hebrew musical instruments included the kinnor, lyre, navel, harp, and other stringed instruments, some of which are depicted in reliefs from neighboring civilizations. In verse 9, the focus shifts from the king to the royal court. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor, at your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir. The plural, daughters of kings, suggests multiple royal women in the court, likely princesses from foreign kingdoms married into the royal family as part of diplomatic alliances. Solomon reportedly had 700 wives of royal birth, 1 Kings 11 verse 3, many of whom were probably diplomatic marriages cementing relationships with surrounding nations. The queen's position, at your right hand, signifies her special status. In ancient courts, proximity to the king indicated rank and favor. The right side was particularly significant as the place of honor. Her attire, gold of Ophir, represents the height of luxury. Ophir, possibly located in southern Arabia, eastern Africa, or even India, was famous for its exceptionally pure gold. During Solomon's reign, a fleet traveled to Ophir every 3 years, returning with gold, precious stones, exotic woods, and even peacocks, 1 Kings 10 verse 22. At this point, the psalmist turns his attention directly to the bride in verses 10 to 11. Hear, O daughter, and consider, and incline your ear, forget your people and your father's house, and the king will desire your beauty. Since he is your Lord, bow to him. These verses reflect the reality of royal brides, who typically came from foreign kingdoms. The instruction to forget your people and your father's house acknowledges the significant transition these women experienced, leaving behind their homeland, family, culture, and often religion to enter a new royal household. In ancient Near Eastern marriages, women typically integrated into their husband's family, but for foreign princesses, this adjustment was particularly dramatic. The command to bow to the king reflects the hierarchical nature of ancient marriages and royal protocol. The Hebrew term for Lord, Adon, here is not a divine title but one of authority and respect. The bride is encouraged to fully embrace her new identity and role within Israel's royal court. Verse 12 introduces another element. The people of Tyre will seek your favor with gifts, the richest of the people. Tyre was a wealthy Phoenician city-state known for maritime trade and purple dye produced from murex shells, so valuable that Tyrian purple became synonymous with royalty. This reference suggests several possibilities. Perhaps the bride is from Tyre, or Tyre is sending wedding gifts, or this represents future diplomatic relations. During Solomon's reign, Israel maintained close ties with Tyre, whose king Hiram provided cedar and craftsmen for the Jerusalem temple, 1 Kings 5 verses 1 to 12. Verses 13 to 15 return to describing the bride. All glorious is the princess in her chamber, with robes interwoven with gold. In many-colored robes she is led to the king, with her virgin companions following behind her. With joy and gladness they are led along as they enter the palace of the king. This passage depicts the bridal procession, a central element of ancient wedding ceremonies. The Hebrew term for princess, Bat Melech, literally means daughter of the king, which could refer to her royal lineage or her new status as the king's wife. Her chamber, literally, within, suggests the inner apartments where she prepares for the ceremony. Her elaborate attire, robes interwoven with gold, and many-colored robes, reflects her royal status. Archaeological findings from ancient Near Eastern contexts reveal that royal garments were often embroidered with gold thread and dyed with expensive pigments. The production of such garments required immense skill and resources. A single royal garment might represent months of labor by specialized artisans. The virgin companions were likely daughters of nobility assigned to attend the queen, a practice documented in various ancient courts. These young women served practical functions but also symbolized the queen's importance. The larger her entourage, the greater her status. The procession moves, with joy and gladness. The wedding is a celebration not just for the royal couple but for the entire kingdom. Royal weddings were public spectacles and political events that could last for days or even weeks, involving feasting, music, dancing, and gift exchanges. In verses 16 to 17, the psalm looks toward the future. In place of your fathers shall be your sons, you will make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations, therefore nations will praise you forever and ever. This conclusion addresses the king again, promising dynastic continuity. The reference to sons becoming princes in all the earth suggests both numerical abundance and far-reaching influence. In ancient monarchies, royal sons often governed provinces or became ambassadors to foreign courts. During Solomon's reign, administrative districts were established throughout the kingdom, each overseen by appointed officials who may have included royal princes. The promise of an everlasting name reflects the ancient concern with legacy and remembrance. In a culture without modern concepts of afterlife, being remembered by future generations was a form of immortality. The psalmist assures the king that this wedding poem will preserve his memory, in all generations. The final line, therefore nations will praise you forever and ever, expands this remembrance beyond Israel to include foreign peoples, suggesting the international significance of Israel's monarchy. During Solomon's reign, Israel reached its greatest territorial extent and international prestige, with foreign dignitaries like the Queen of Sheba traveling to Jerusalem to witness his wisdom and splendor. 1 Kings 10 verses 1 to 13. As we step back from this detailed examination of Psalm 45, we can appreciate its remarkable characteristics. This wedding song, composed nearly 3 millennia ago, offers us a window into ancient royal ceremonies while simultaneously providing theological insights into kingship, marriage, and divine purpose. For Jewish readers throughout history, this psalm celebrated the ideal of righteous kingship and looked forward to future Davidic rulers who would embody these qualities. For Christians, following the New Testament's lead, the psalm became a prophetic portrait of Christ as the divine King whose throne is forever and ever, and whose reign embodies perfect righteousness. But beyond these theological readings, Psalm 45 reminds us of our shared humanity across the centuries. Though separated by time, culture, and worldview, we can recognize in this ancient wedding song universal themes: the joy of celebration, the importance of character in leadership, the hope for prosperity, and the desire to build a legacy that outlasts our brief lives. As we close our exploration of this royal wedding poem, I invite you to consider, what qualities do we value in our leaders today? How do we celebrate life's significant transitions? And what kind of legacy do we hope to leave for future generations? The ancient poet who composed these lines for a royal wedding could hardly have imagined that his words would still be read, studied, and cherished thousands of years later. Yet here we are, still finding meaning in this beautiful composition that once echoed through Jerusalem's palace courtyards on a day of royal celebration. Before you go, I want to personally invite you to be part of our growing community here at Prayer Universe. If this video touched your heart or brought you peace, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a prayer or message that can uplift your spirit. But most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, share just one word or phrase of motivation that this video inspired in you, whether it's hope, gratitude, peace, or something else. Your words matter deeply to us because they help guide the content we create for this channel. Together, let's build a space filled with faith, encouragement, and connection. Thank you for being here, and remember, every prayer counts. See you in the next one.